Good day. Thank you for watching another episode of the Manila Times Coffee Break, where we catch up with the hot topics and issues of the day. My name is Defort Villasaran, and with me today is Ana Oposa, the co-founder of Save Philippine Seas. Since 2013, its tagline, Because Our Seas Save Us, explains why nonprofit group Save Philippine Seas, or SPS, does what it does. As witty as it is serious about reversing the industrial degradation of oceans, it creates linkages as between sectors in the Philippine ocean ecosystem with SPS's advocacy. The non-government organization, or NGO, engages international and local government units, or LGUs, businesses, educational institutions, civic groups, and like-minded individuals. So, hello, Anna, and thanks for taking a break from your hectic schedule, and thanks for sitting with us.
Hi, DeFort. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here. I used to be a lifestyle journalist, and I actually wrote for the Manila Times a couple of times before.
And like, what was your beat, or what was your point of interest
It was
when you were?
I remember it was just general lifestyle and some current events. It was like 10 years ago, maybe.
Mhm. And so you're used to having like coffee conversations on cam with like persons of interest that you would pick their brains and find out more about your favorite topics.
Yes, we actually my friends and I actually hosted a podcast called Coffee Break. So when I saw that I would be invited to Coffee Break, it brought up a lot of good memories with this name.
Very. That's like there's this synchronicity happening here. This is where we're both meant to be, talking
Yes.
right now. Maybe there's this very important message that needs to be brought out into the world. So, first off, the most important question we need to ask is, how do you like your coffee prepared?
I have been taking my coffee black since I was in high school. So most of my family members have this tradition of taking their coffee black. So I just kind of inherited it since I was in high school. I used to drink about 3 cups of coffee a day, but now I'm trying to limit it to one. Trying is the operative word. But yeah.
And achieving maybe 10 in a day, even trying to limit to one.
Oh my
Um,
God, grabe yung heart palpitation ng 10.
I'm curious about your family name, Oposa. Is there any connection between? Are you related to any of the lawyers involved in this in the milestone cases involving the environment in the Philippines?
So I like to say that I am the favorite daughter of Attorney Oposa, and he has no choice because I'm his only daughter, so he has to agree with it. But yes, I was the co-petitioner in that landmark case called Oposa versus Factoran, and I was 2 years old, I think, at that time that it was filed. So I don't really have like a good memory of it at all. But
Mhm.
obviously now a lot of people associate my last name with that and me with that.
2 years old pa lang, naghahabla ka na ng mga tao. What people should watch out with, no, with you now today.
Yeah, somebody tweeted before na I just realized that Ana Oposa is related to Attorney Oposa. Their last name, their last name's root word is oppose. Kaya daw palagi kaming naaaway ng mga tao.
Mahilig mag-oppose si Oposa.
Yes.
Well, you also have an interesting second title when it comes to your organization, Save Philippine Seas. You are, as your calling card, your business card says, Chief Mermaid. Now, what exactly does the
Yes.
Chief Mermaid do?
You know
Making
that.
waves?
Yes, exactly. Being mermazing. No, the Chief Mermaid title started out as a joke. So many years ago, someone said, you should have business cards so that people take you seriously. So our volunteer graphic designer
Hence Chief
said,
Mermaid, right?
Exactly. And then I said, okay, then I'll have a title na Chief Mermaid. And our graphic designer said, are you joking? And I was like, well, other companies have chief executive officers and chief finance officers. And I think it's going to be funny if I put Chief Mermaid. So I put it there. And then one day I was giving a talk somewhere and someone approached me asking for my card. And then yun pala galing sa DENR, sa Department of Environment and Natural Resources, sa Tapos nag-send sila ng letter na Ana Oposa, Chief Mermaid. Sabi ko, oh my God, siniseryoso ako ng mga tao. So it just kind of stuck. Like I never outgrew the title. So 10 years later, I'm still the Chief Mermaid.
Very interesting. And since you were asking me, I like my coffee black as sin also, but with a pinch of chia seeds for strength. That way I can give a
Oh,
strong greeting. So, welcome, Anna, to the Manila Times Coffee Break.
thank you. That's the first time I ever heard chia seeds being put in coffee. Maybe
You
I'll
should
try
try it.
that
It's
tomorrow.
well, parang ano, it's like a black version of bubble tea.
Sige, sige, try ko yan.
Nag-expand yun na parang anyway. And with if we can give a little backgrounder about Save Philippine Seas, there's a lot of wit and fun going on in the organization, despite the seriousness of the issues that it tackles. It has helped transform collaborators, even such organizations such as Mondelez Philippines here, and its consumers. You've turned them into citizens. That's how you like to use all these funds, and that
Yeah,
way they believe that the Philippines is not only worth dying for, but this one I like that you guys coined, but worth diving for till the
indeed.
very end. Mhm. So, trivia alert: Mondelez was named by its employees to mean delicious food. So, we've titled our webisode for today as "Delicious Food: Keeping Philippine Seas Clean." So we'll talk about how Save Philippine Seas educates communities about benefits and the value of restoring and sustaining marine resources. And as an NGO, you empower them to become citizens
Yeah.
who take action to protect the sea and its bounty. So, Anna, could you tell us a bit more about how, because your organization started out as an online platform to just prevent the poaching of wildlife and especially endangered species.
Yeah.
And it has grown. So from like 2011, you became incorporated, or you became a formal
Yes.
organization in 2013.
Yes.
Could you give us the milestones of the journey of SPS, Save Philippines?
Yeah, that's a great question to start. In 2011, I had just graduated college. I was an English major, so you can see all my wordplay and my love for puns infiltrating our campaigns. I had no plans of getting into environmental conservation because, as we talked about earlier, it's my dad's thing, and he's so famous in the environmental field, and I really didn't want to, be known as his daughter everywhere I go. Um, but then there was this illegal wildlife trade case that hit the news. I had just graduated. I was looking for what my mom calls a real job, and nothing really felt right when I was walking through like Ayala Ave and walking through the buildings of the CBD. But I had this intense interest in environmental conservation. I think because you just can't outgrow or you can't run away from your upbringing, right? So that summer, I started tweeting and met other people online, and we used the hashtag SavePHCs. So we decided to create a Facebook page, and it was really just that to monitor that illegal wildlife trade case that you mentioned. But because I wasn't doing anything, I was looking for work. It became like a side hustle while I had so much free time. And from there, we started getting more supporters. We got some funding, and for 2 years it was just like an online campaign as we talked about earlier. But then when more corporations and other like foundations wanted to donate, then we had to register because we had to be able to give official receipts and show all these like registrations. So that's the only time that I said, okay, sige, let's try this and see if it works. And it's been 10 years. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary
Congratulations.
in yeah, thanks, in May 2021. So there's been a lot of now we now work mainly on waste management and circular economy, environmental education, and shark conservation. So all our projects pretty much fall under those three pillars.
Could you just kind of explain to some of our audience unfamiliar just exactly what those three terms are?
Yeah, so when it comes to environmental education, we want to, and we call our followers, like you mentioned earlier, citizens, because we want to remind Filipinos, especially, that wherever we are in the Philippines, we are connected to the sea. And the actions and the choices that we make every day have an impact on our oceans and our waterways. And that's the core of the environment, the kind of environmental education that we develop and that we promote, and something that is action oriented. Hindi yung parang magme-memorize ka lang, mag-aaral ka lang, but really something that has a bias for action. So that's the environmental education part. When it comes to shark conservation, sharks are my favorite animal. I can imagine people getting like scared as I say this, but I've dived with many sharks, and I always say that it's scarier to be driving on EDSA than being with a shark underwater. So we're working on
While the case
policy.
at 2 years old swims with shark. This is getting interesting. Okay.
The more to come, more to come. Um, I worked on establishing a shark sanctuary in Central Philippines, and now working on policies and working with different stakeholders to make sure that that policy is enforceable and socially just. So we're not excluding certain members of society. And the last one is waste management and circular economy. So that's reducing plastic use and making sure that the things that we use go somewhere proper and not to our environment.
So you have a lot of volunteers for each of these endeavors.
We used to have more volunteers, but now with the pandemic, it's very much limited to content creators
Mhm.
because it's just difficult to get people outside.
True, but for this to be effective, for your volunteers to have growth or exponential in terms of development, especially in a fluid advocacy that you have, there must be a core group, I guess, that motivates them, connects them, and just basically gives them that sense of direction. If not giving them that crazy sense of how to go about saving the seas. And I guess this is how you and others like you in the organization kind of infect them with that kind of fun and pun-loving activities, right? That way, it's clearly this is another thing you threw out there. You guys don't. It seems like you guys don't really take yourselves seriously.
Yeah, yeah. I always say that we take problems of the ocean seriously, but ourselves never. Kasi
Mhm.
once you take yourselves too seriously, talo ka eh, pikon ka eh. So dapat you always have to have fun when you're doing this kind of work. That can be very frustrating at times.
Mhm.
It can be disheartening at times. But now, so SPS for many years felt like a one woman team. I was doing everything from like accounting to comms to writing to fundraising to everything. But now this is the biggest our team has ever been, and it's a grand total of 6 people working all part time. We all have other rackets going on. We all have a semi day job or like school or something. But we
Mhm.
are now six, and that's the biggest. That's the biggest we've ever been, and probably will be for a while.
So, what are the functions and how can people volunteer? If would you accept people to help out?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm the executive director in Chief Mermaid. So I'm like a chief executive officer. I manage all the projects. I work a lot on module development and copywriting and comms because that's my strength really, and policy. And then we have two project managers who focus more on the logistics of the projects and coordinating with the stakeholders. We have the creative director who does all our graphics and the community management, like replying to emails and helping me create reports for donors. We have an environmental education specialist, and we have an admin and finance officer. And that this is the first year that someone is helping me manage the finances. So that's a big help because numbers give me anxiety as an English major.
But how about organizations? How can they come on board? The ones that haven't yet.
Yeah, so we are very much open to partnerships. I like to say that SPS is like Switzerland. We're neutral ground, and we're open to working with all kinds of organizations. They can just reach out to us. And right now, we're focusing a lot on developing environmental education materials and online trainings that are again action oriented still. And we like also to give sub grants to a lot of like youth leaders who want to create environmental education projects in their own communities.
So you mentioned communities, and then apart from other NGOs and schools, you have local government units and aforementioned corporations. How about even ordinary citizens? So all of these different sectors, uh, the avenues for participation. Could you give us more kind of like a spread of things that they can get into? They have an idea of where they can be of help.
Yeah, sure. Now, obviously with the we used to have like a lot of outdoor activities and experiential learning activities, but now obviously our options are limited. So a lot of the work we do is like online events and online workshops, and also creating content. So we like to come up with infographics and posters and other downloadable materials, and educational kits. We just launched our Earth Education Kit, which is mostly targeting teachers and other kinds of educators. So if you're a writer, an illustrator, a graphic designer, a web developer, more of the creative side yung hanap namin ngayon, just because of how the
Mhm.
situation is with the pandemic.
So when you make these kinds of infographics and content, you each have themes, or you have a plan, a communications plan. What's your current informational campaign? Uh,
So right now, I'm so excited to share that we have an infographic series in partnership with Mondelez. I'm a huge fan of Mondelez's products, and they know they. I have fangirled over their products every time I'm in the grocery. I buy something from them.
so may guilt
Um,
involved dito. You're part of the problem and polluting, and you're just trying to collect it back from
Grabe ka
everything you've
naman.
eaten. Is that the
No,
psychological background talaga of all of this?
no. It's just that I think, when we work with when SPS, the way we approach environmental conservation is very. It's a balance between being realistic but also aspirational. We can't we can't pretend that we don't live in a world where single-use plastics is useful and beneficial for everybody, or plastics in general, not just single-use plastics. So
Mhm.
it's just about making informed decisions and trying to change the system. There's this environmental advocate, Bill McKibben, and he said that living a perfect life is not the goal, changing the system is. So that's what we're trying to do with this partnership.
So back to the information campaign, you were saying
Yes.
that you were excited about it.
Yes, so we have been working with Mondelez to develop infographics on plastics, why they're important, what is the real cost of this problem, how complex it is, and then we also worked on developing like a policy paper or a white paper identifying how complex this problem is, and then some solutions and recommendations for policymakers.
That's correct, because you can't just do away with plastics, right? And they do have a
Exactly.
really a clear benefit when it comes to making sure that the food we eat is preserved, protected, and sanitized for when we actually consume it.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that we wanted to highlight with this. I think, it's been many years of vilifying or making plastic a villain, but we have to also acknowledge that it's not that simple. It's not. There's this book I have called Green is Not Black and White. And that's exactly what these infographics are also trying to say.
So then, how have you? To what extent is the collaboration with Mondelez regarding this
So
campaign?
yeah, we brainstormed on three sets of infographics that build on each other. So the first one is explaining the problem, how did we get here? And then the second one is on segregation and how we can do this at home. Because I think a lot of us want to segregate, but it's confusing, and we don't know where to bring it. We don't know what happens to it after. And then the last set is on swaps, simple swaps that you can make at home. And that one is a two-part series, just because we were surprised that we had a lot to say. Initially, it was just supposed to be three sets, but now it's like four. Actually, we could even make more, but this is just the beginning, I hope.
This is like your coffee consumption, right? Initially, dapat ganito lang, pero naging ganito.
Exactly.
Well, what's interesting is that you're trying to clarify what is bad about plastic and what can be done about it. At the same time, you remind people how it's still important and how we can just make more informed decisions in the use of it, right?
Exactly.
Then
Exactly.
maybe you can help us get into or understand more the misconceptions about plastic packaging and waste in general.
How much time do you have? Joke lang.
Well, that's
Hmm.
thank you very much. That's all we have for today.
Tapos na pala. No, okay. So, I think, like I said earlier, in a lot of comms, plastic as a material has been vilified. So, diba, like the comms has always been, let's ban single-use plastics and everything's going to be fine. Like the environment will be clean. But and maybe if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have that same position. But after being exposed to different policymakers and manufacturers and producers and grassroots communities whose work, whose daily lives will be affected by this, a kind of
Mhm.
policy like this, I started thinking na I think we need to be more intentional about how we communicate, how complex this problem is. And to be honest, when we were creating these materials, there were so many times. So it was just me, another researcher, and our graphic designer, our creative director, who were working on this. And actually, our WhatsApp group is called hashtag rags to riches. Kasi it's like our Mondelez, ano, it's like our Mondelez team. So when we were brainstorming about this, we read a lot of papers, a lot of articles, and we just kept going back to the drawing board and thinking, oh my God, it's not as simple. Like, how do we fit all this information into 10 slides, 10 slides on Instagram? We had so many revisions of this. And we even had three different peer reviewers. One was a waste management specialist, one is an environmental education specialist, and another one is a peace and women's advocate, just so that we have different perspectives informing the way we write these materials and design these materials.
Mhm.
Because nga, we wanted to be, as a communicator, you want to simplify it but not dumb it down. And I think that's one of the hardest. Such a challenge, diba? I mean,
It's a
you're a
balance,
journalist.
yes.
Yeah, you're a journalist. You understand this like fine line. So it was really hard, but I think we're quite happy with what we've come up with, and I hope people also like it and makes them think or rethink the way they approach waste management and plastic consumption.
So you have this certain goal, right? Because if you don't have a target, you're not going to hit anything at all, right? So could you share with us what that goal is in terms of your communication? What was it that you had intended to achieve? How do you quantify it? How do you say, oh, we did a good job, or we need more? This is not doing enough, or this bit is doing pretty well. How would
Yeah, for
you evaluate that?
Yeah, that's a good question. For the infographics, for the content creation, it's really about raising awareness and having that more nuanced conversation. So, when we post it, of course, there's the metrics of like, did it have engagement? Did people ask questions? But on a deeper level, we're going to integrate these materials and this information in our environmental education programs. And all our environmental education programs have a behavior change component. So on the first day, we measure behavior change. What are the current practices they have? And then months after and a year after, we measure this kind of behavior change as well. We also have discussions. And then as an organization, we also work with policymakers as resource persons for different kinds of policies, including waste management, circular economy, and single-use plastics. So hopefully, some of the things that we created in these materials can penetrate or can inform the policies and other informational campaigns that other people are doing.
So you work hand in hand with survey groups, or you have your own system of being able to track the behavior changes.
We have our own method. So when I did my master's in conservation science, my big topic for my thesis was actually monitoring and evaluation because I feel like we don't do that very well as conservationists, and there are papers to support this also. But so we have a very precise, or this is a method we've been doing for like 6 years already to track behavior change. But it's a very targeted type of monitoring and evaluation with the participants that we interact with. Because to be honest, if we post this, we really have no way of tracking, if we have, let's say, 500 likes, how many of those people who liked it will change behavior? We don't know, and we really can't track it. But with our programs, we can. That's what we have control of.
The thing is, this whole concept, the whole information that you're trying to get out there, seems to be very relevant, although it might not seem like it to some who are very much concerned with uh, the larger issue of the pandemic. What I'm trying to say is that where people are concerned with survival
Yes.
and these seem to be loftier ideals, and yet it seems to me that it's very connected with the day to day that people experience, especially during the pandemic. When things were during the first lockdown, people were saying that nature is healing and blah 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 because they had noticed that people were using less fossil fuels, they were polluting areas even less because of less movement and less scattering of whatever it is that they're tossing away. There were visible changes in the environment when the world itself locked down.
Mm.
And
Yeah. Go ahead.
you were about to say something about how it's connected. These lofty ideas can be connected with the day to day and the everyday person.
Yeah, we actually released last year. SBS released a series of infographics also called Plastics in the Pandemic Facts versus Fears, and another one called the Reuser's Manual, just to inform people that it's still okay to reuse. And of course, we can't argue with the medical industry on we have to dispose of things for hygiene and health reasons. And I think that's okay. We can't, I don't think we can ever debate with that. But definitely our lifestyle choices every day make a difference. And I'll be the first to admit that when the pandemic, when the lockdowns happened, my plastic consumption increased so much because of ordering stuff online.
Bubble wrap.
So yeah, my bubble wrap, like all these layers and all these boxes. I mean, so with that, I've become a lot more responsible with where my trash goes. So I found a recycler nearby, and every 2 weeks I drop off all my clean and dry plastics there. Kilala na nga nila ako dun eh. Like when I arrive pa lang, they're like, "Adyan na si Ma'am Ana," like that. Because I
Yan na
know
yung
them
sirena.
already. Yeah, so it's also being conscious of what we buy and where it goes.
So while no man or mermaid is certainly an island, no one organization has the whole archipelago. So it takes all of the barangay and all the villagers inside
Exactly.
to raise the alarm if there are illegal activities, marine activities that damage the environment, and these violators. How can average snackers and even like you, an avid
Mm.
Mondelez Philippines consumer, right, report other violators, major, big, suspicious activities?
Well, according to our law, the Solid Waste Management, Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of the Philippines, the first responders should always be your local government unit. That's the mandate. Sila yung in charge of waste management. Sila yung dapat nag-a-accept ng mga violations, and sila din dapat yung nag-execute if may penalties. So definitely sila yung um, official ones. But if you live in like a village with a homeowners association, or like the property management council of your condo, those are also people that, or organizations or associations that you can work with and coordinate with when it comes to these. But of course, also your household. So from yourself, your household, your larger community, then your LGU. Parang for me, yun yung steps ng engaging communities.
So, does SPS have any anti-pollution hotlines or sea watch touch points that help people facilitate their bit for the seas and for the environment.
Not so much a hotline, but we are always, so if you email us at info@savephilippineseas.org, we are quite responsive. So if you have any questions or ideas, or a lot of citizens have reached out to us saying, how can we like get the attention of our local government, or we saw this happening, who should we get in touch with? And I think over the decade that we've been around, we've made some good relationships and good connections. So we just try to be like a good dot connector in that sense. Kasi hindi naman talaga namin mandate mag-implement ng penalties, 'di ba? So we just try to parang facilitate that, kumbaga.
Well, well said. But unfortunately, while our discussion has only begun to heat up, our coffee has gone cold. Nakalimutan ko nga uminom. And our break is over. But before we all go back to our hectic schedules and you go back to swimming in your part of the dagat, any parting words from the chief mermaid for our viewers?
Yeah, so our infographics are already available for people to share, to download, and to follow in their homes. And we hope that you all of the people watching, can read the materials and then make the daily lifestyle changes in their homes, because that's really how we can make waves of change together.
Excellent. We appreciate your insightful words and we hope to hear more next time for another coffee break soon, Anna.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
me.
Anna. That's Anna Oposa. She's the co-founder and chief mermaid of Save Philippine Seas. SPS accomplishes its advocacy by providing free toolkits by writing letters to sector leaders and by providing relevant and current infographics, like she mentioned. So these are for media practitioners and on the environmental beat and stakeholders of green businesses. SPS provides these graphic data, and you can just check them out on their Instagram for every time they have their paparazzi posts. So thank you also to all our viewers for being part of the conversation about delicious food keeping Philippine seas clean. I'm the Fort Villasaran, and I hope you enjoyed experiencing the perks of the Manila Times coffee break. Have a great week.